Good morning, everyone. Good morning, and welcome back. Welcome back to the PorscheCooled Podcast, the podcast where we talk about all things Porsche. Sydney time, Sydney morning. It's Tuesday here. We're recording this. This is Friday's episode, a few days earlier. And Steve is here. Once again, you're going to go, Steve must be sitting across from you since you guys are both in Sydney. We don't live that close to each other, but we kind of live close enough if it's not in traffic. But we're doing it from home again. What was that, Steve?
Yeah. It's close enough to do it. I've got no problem with it. It's just we have to coordinate, that's all.
We do need to coordinate, and I'm going to say that's my fault because I'm not really coordinated at the moment. As you'll find out when I start talking about my effing leather installation dilemmas that I've been having, which Steve thinks, what is wrong with you? It's so simple. How can you make such a simple thing so complicated? This is why I didn't want to film it, and this is why I didn't film it. And I know people have been saying, film the installation. No, because it's hard enough me actually doing these things, then let alone trying to film it. Steve, good morning. What's been happening?
All I can say, mate, is good morning. But all I can say is that you're not stupid enough to stick a butter knife through it, so it can't be worse than that.
James, are you there?
Did I really just call him stupid?
Okay, I'm not gonna add to that. All right, so we're back. We're in Sydney. This is a PorscheCooled Podcast. If you haven't been here before, welcome. My name's Michael Barth, and Steve is on the other end. I just want to go back to last week's episode. I had a lot of, and I was about to tell you this, Steve, before we went on. I had a lot of people message me last week about how they really enjoyed last week's episode.
Really?
And as you know, I was freaking out about last week's episode because the sound was terrible. And, as you know, our apartment, it has, tiled floors and it's an open space. So I was worried that the sound was terrible because of the fact that, because of the space, right? Yep. And I just realized this morning, because I can't leave my microphone set up all the time here like I do in London due to the lack of space, I realized when I was putting it together, I usually see the little blue light on the Rode microphone. I had my microphone around the wrong way. Hence why I couldn't get the levels at the right level, Steve, and hence why I sounded like I was in another room. So
yeah, and it sounds heaps better even on this end. I just thought it was because of all the hard surfaces, and even though I'm looking at you because we're doing like a video sort of Zoom call, I couldn't see the little blue light last time.
Yeah, so I'm an idiot, and it was probably because I was still a bit jet lagged. And I have to say, it's hit us pretty hard. We're still, I think we've just come out of it.
I'm not surprised.
Last night I went to bed at 10:30 and I woke up at 7:30 this morning, or 7 o'clock this morning. So that's pretty good. The other mornings I was waking up at 4. So I think it's gone now, which is great. Out of practice, mate, that's for sure.
I went to bed at 10 to 8 last night. How's that?
10 to 8?
Yep.
That's why you wake up at 3 in the morning.
I was just so knackered. We went for a drive, as you know, on Sunday, and it just kind of completely took it out of me. So
yeah. So everyone's listening and going, "How was the drive, Michael?" Tell them, Steve, what happened.
You didn't go. Oh, it rained though. It did rain. So I wasn't. I knew that you'd be kind of 50-50, and I was saying to Marco that I wasn't expecting that you necessarily would kind of come along because you had a freshly painted bumper and a newly minted car and all of this sort of stuff. So I semi-expected that you probably kind of wouldn't come. It's just that Marco and I, the last few months, like particularly since lockdown ended, trying to find a time that we can both do it, then coordinating it against mainly the weather, which has generally been pretty crap in Sydney. We kind of knew that, like, we're both on the same page in terms of if it's not physically raining and the forecast kind of only shows light rain, if the roads are damp but not sort of soaked, then we'll go. And we kind of call it the morning of, so that's what we did. Yeah,
and I think I wasn't climatized to that. I did sleep in. I was a bit late because you said meet at 6 o'clock at Barara.
Yep.
Can't speak this morning. And I didn't wake up till like 5:30. I think when I messaged you, I think it was 5:30, and I thought, I'm not going to make it there in that time now. And then it was kind of looked like it was drizzling here, and I thought, I had Pierre. I had Pierre and Atlas in the back of my head saying, be careful with your bumper because you can't get PPF for 4 weeks, and You know, when he had his car redone, he took it out and he got all stone chips straight away, and he should have PPF'd it. And, you know, so I was worried about the bumper. You know what I mean? And it's like when you get something new. It's like when you buy a new car, and you've bought a new car before, Steve, a few times, and so have I.
No, I haven't actually. Have I ever driven?
Yes, you have.
Oh yeah, one
S3.
That was it.
What about the Subaru?
The R6. The R6. Yeah, Subaru.
What about the BMW?
Yeah.
No. Yeah. So you know what it's like? It's like when you get a new car or you get a new iPhone or whatever, you get like very precious about it. And then I had a bit of a paranoia attack on Saturday after damaging my wheel, which some people know about already, but I can get into that a bit later. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. I don't know. It was just one of those mornings where it just, you know, when you just think something bad's going to happen. I kind of felt like something bad was going to happen. As much as I wanted to go for a drive. And I did go for a bit of a drive yesterday, though.
How was it?
I might get into that. It was good, actually. We just went over to... Well, the plan was because I had... You know, the plan was to go to Hakuna Bay, but I was a bit of a tight ass, so I didn't want to pay the $12 to go all the way, so I didn't go all the way. But Hakuna Bay is just on the north side here in Sydney. People who know it, just off, what is that, Monavale Road or whatever it's called? I don't know what it's called.
Yeah, I want to do it too. I've not done it. I know...
It's quite twisty.
Mentioned it?
Yeah. Jeff does it and he enjoys it. And we were going to go down there and go to the cafe. I think there's a cafe down there called The Shed or something. Yeah, so, you know, you have to pay $12. I didn't go all the way, Steve. I have been there before on that road. I have been there. I used to ride my motorcycle on that road, actually. That's one of the trips. Yeah, that's one of the trips I used to do on the bike, which was quite challenging, actually, because there's a couple of tight hairpins at the end and whatever. But in a car, that's the first time I've been down there in a car. The road's quite narrow. It's a lot narrower than I remember.
Is this with Cars Road?
I think so, yeah. Yeah.
Okay, yep.
And it's behind the nurseries there where you cut off Motorvale Road and you go around the back. It's a good road. It's twisty. It's not a road, and I agree with what Jeff said. It wasn't a road where you go super fast, but it's quite nice. You know what I mean? I mean, not super fast as in 100, maybe doing 70.
Yeah, sure.
But it was good. It was good just to take... I hadn't really driven the car properly. I picked the car up. Let me just do a quick recap, actually. I picked the car up on Friday. Friday in Sydney, as Steve's been saying, Friday, the weather in Sydney is just atrocious. You know, honestly, it's just awful. Friday, it was pissing down with rain, as we say in Australia. And I had to get out to Artarmon. My car didn't end up being ready to 5 in the afternoon. But thanks to, Autohaus, Steve, and thanks to Pierre at Atlas and Chris at Autohaus, they got everything done in 4 days, which is quite a feat because there was a lot of stuff to do in my car.
Yeah, I thought for sure it was going to take heaps longer than that.
Yeah, and Marco said the same to me, I think. Marco said the same on DM. But they really, looked after me, and I really do appreciate it. And I know that Pierre is listening to this, and I just want to say thank you again because it really was. And if you're in Sydney, like I said, Pierre at Atlas Body in Artarmon. Really good. Had a chat with Pierre when I picked the car up. There was a beautiful X88 964 there. Very, very rare car. People will know that car as in that's the car that on Collecting Cars that Jensen Button just sold. He had one, Steve, which was owned by the Sultan of Brunei. Someone in Sydney has one, and there was one in Pierre's workshop, a blue one. Absolutely beautiful. When you stand next to it, like you should go out there and show your car to Pierre, and hopefully that car's still there because it really is fantastic. It really, really is fantastic.
I think it's been trumped. I saw on his Instagram yesterday that there's a TDF in there. It's like, holy shit.
He had I'm not going to say everything that was in there because I'm not sure how private it is, but there was a lot of nice cars in his workshop. And so that was good. Good to meet Pierre and Matthew. And that was that. So I picked the car up, drove back here to the city where I live. Terrible weather, peak hour, pouring down with rain, Steve. Not
How
really
long did
enjoying
that drive
it.
take you?
I don't know, 40 minutes or something, 35 minutes or something from Artarmon.
Getting on the bridge at about 5 o'clock on a Friday is pretty much the worst time to cross.
Yes,
to cross the bridge. So
then I didn't really get a proper feel. That was Friday, and people saying, "Why didn't you go out on Saturday?" Saturday was raining. So Saturday I thought I'd start tackling some of the things in the car, I think. And we have things to do at home as well. So I think it was Saturday or maybe it was Sunday. And I'm not sure what I said last week, but I put the rear back stops on. I think that was before last week's episode. I did the visors. I think that was done. So then I just decided to do the inner door sills.
Yep.
And of course I got my Mac Carbon information sheet that you sent me and I watched the video. All look very simple. except for that effing Allen key. And I think you might have been right. The thing is, if you are doing, and I did the passenger side and was like, oh, this is so easy. Steve was right, you know. Yeah. I might have been swearing at you afterwards, Steve, about this. But the passenger side had the one torque screw, which you undo. It's easy, simple. Idiot can do it. Even someone like me, you know, that doesn't really do installations. Then I go to the driver's side, take the 2 plastic caps off, and inside the plastic caps is an Allen key, which you have to somehow find, which is deep into the hole. First, I didn't have one that was long enough. I came upstairs and got an old IKEA one that looked like it was 5 millimeters. You know, and then I had another one which looked like it was a bit bigger. So I tried those. They didn't work. I couldn't use my little tool set from Costco because that didn't have a long enough arm and it didn't fit.
Yep.
So I thought, okay, I'll go out to Bunnings. I'll get the proper 5 millimeter Allen key. Of course, I go out there. They have nothing except for the, you know, a really expensive one. So I just buy it anyway. I don't care. Like a whole pack of, now I've got like 40 Allen keys that I don't need.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
You should have told me you were going to do that because the $2 shop around the corner, you know, on I won't say the street, so I won't locate you, but that local $2 shop,
really,
you can buy like an Allen key set there for like about $2.50.
So anyway, Saturday I went down there at 10 in the morning. This is about 2 in the afternoon. I'd gone downstairs and upstairs multiple times to do my car and left it.
Yep.
First I tried, so then I did the sill, couldn't do that. So then I just tried to do the sunroof surround, the leather sunroof surround, which has the light. Now that looked pretty easy, right? There's 2 caps. You pull the caps off. You take the screws out. Easy, Steve. You know, unscrew it. Phillips head, not torque, so you get to have Phillips head for that. And then you pull it down. That looks
a bit more complicated, though, because you've got to take the original switches and bits and swap it over, right?
Well, I'll get back to the switches and the door sill in a second. So, and then the sunroof surround. So I tried that thinking that's going to be easier. Pull out the sunroof plug. Easy, comes out straight away, the sunroof connector. The effing light switch for the light, the power. And I went online after this, and other people have had the same issue. If some people have just broken it off or something, I don't know. I can't get it out. It's one of these plugs that goes in, and it looks like it has a little hole that you push something in. I'm pushing a screwdriver and trying to pull it. I go into the workshop manual that I have. I come back upstairs. It says push it and pull it. Went down again, tried it. Just couldn't do it without the risk of breaking it. So I left that. So that was annoying. So then went back to the sill. I still couldn't do the sill with the Allen keys. So then went and bought the Allen keys, like I said. And then in my favorite car park in the world, Bunnings, which I usually have a certain way that I go in and out of Bunnings in Alexandria. I think it's Alexandria. Or the one near Alexandria. And I couldn't do it today because it was that day, because it was on Saturday, because it was busy. So I had to go a different way around. And then I'm coming up to the ramp, and the ramp's on the left-hand side, and normally I come straight onto the ramp. And then this woman just cuts straight in front of me. She doesn't wait on the right-hand side. So then I wait for her. She decides she doesn't want to go there, and she wants to wait for me. She's getting annoyed. So then I go, and I'm on the wrong angle, the wrong entry angle. And then I hear it, and there goes my left rear. So then I hit my rear on the gutter. Ouch. So then I was annoyed. And then, it's a comedy errors. You want to hear more? And then I went back onto the main road, whatever that road is, or not O'Riordan, the other one. Not that road that's, Waterloo way. I stop the car where I can stop, get out, and I rub my finger along the ridge of the wheel. Because I wasn't thinking, because I was like annoyed. And I rub my finger, Steve, and then there's a big chunk of metal, and then I slice my finger so badly that the light starts pouring out. And it's like, this is why I don't do DIY. This is why. But anyway, I eventually got it done. It literally has 2 Allen keys. If anyone's doing it, the inner door sills has 2 Allen keys. They're deep in. The one of them you cannot access because you need I don't know how you access yours, Steve. Without taking the seat out, you cannot access it on my car.
I think maybe the mounting points, the seat rail might be different on my car because I've got the buckets.
Yeah, and I think Rich...
So it might be that.
I think it might be Richard Carrera Lucia said the same thing. I think he did something. I think he said the same thing. But basically, I put it in the one I could get by pushing the seat back, and then I found it. When I eventually found it with the 5 mil, I could find it. It wasn't easy to get it, but I found it. So I undid that one. And then they say, do not remove without releasing both slightly, otherwise you'll damage the sill. And I thought, I can't do this anymore. I just got the trim tool and I pushed it up and I pulled it up. Luckily, the second Allen key didn't seem to be as tight. Like it seems like it was changed before, and maybe when they changed my switch gear out when I've got the car when the switch gear was broken, I think that Autohaus may not have tightened it up completely as well. So I just did the same. I just almost did it all the way up, managed to slip the plastic in so it was tight enough, and then just tightened up the one Allen key. So now it's in. Looks fantastic. It looks really good. The leather seals.
They do look good, right?
They're fantastic. Tasha likes them. It makes it, honestly, Steve, you're right. That difference in the car, I know it's when you open the door, but you see it when you're in the car, makes a huge difference. It's really, really good.
Don't scuff it, mate.
And I've already scuffed it yesterday slightly, but it came off quite straight away. I got the leather cleaner on it last night.
You could always do the leather coating thing. I'm on a coating binge at the moment. Yeah. I can't imagine how leather coating works. But
I don't know about coatings.
Yeah.
Did we talk about your wheel coatings? We should come up back to that. I don't think we spoke about it.
Well, let's circle back a bit.
Let me just do the intro stuff, and let's just get this covered. PorscheCooled Patreon. There's no
29 minutes worth of intro.
There's no new members yet, so we won't talk about that. But if you want to support PorscheCooled, you just go to patreon.com/PorscheCooled, and it helps us keep talking. Reviews this week. We had one review, Steve. Yeah, it's a funny one. Genuine Porsche talk from a genuine guy. I think they're talking about me. Natural Porsche talk.
Yeah, it must be you.
Natural Porsche talk from a Porsche enthusiast. Very easy to listen to and very informative. Steve is a great add-in and supporting guest. I think he's having a joke because you always say you're a guest and I always say you're a host, Steve.
No, I'm a guest.
So that's from nice guy Alex in Australia. Thank you, Alex. Much appreciated.
Oh, he is nice.
What else? Owner stories. Let me just talk about owner stories because last night, it's Tuesday here in Sydney, even though it's Friday's episode. Last night I edited owner stories. I left it really late because I had to get it up at a certain time. And that was Matthew. So you would have, hopefully you guys have listened to it already. If you haven't, go to the episode and have a listen. It's owner stories number, what is it, Steve? Number
50-something.
59.
51.
Number 59.
Oh, yep.
Number 59, so that's Matthew from London. I had a good chat with Matthew. We spoke just before I left London. I did a few owner stories and we had a good chat. We didn't talk about watches in the episode, and Matthew's a real watch guy, which I didn't realize, and I should have asked him before we ended, but we're already up to an hour and a half, so I didn't actually get to ask him. But we had a good chat after recording about his watches. So he's into watches as well. I won't say which ones, but he's into watches. I like Matthew's story because it shows you, and I think he said it, it's like a progression, Steve. Like he made that progression. It's like, you start off, you don't have a lot of money, you want to get somewhere, you know where you want to be, and then you get there, and I think it's that gratification when you get there that you have a Porsche. Do you know what I mean? Or you have the car you want. And I think his story reflects that really, really well. And even though he lived in London and central London and the car's being parked on the street and one car, someone stuck a mop up his muffler and after his exhaust and, like these things. That, wow. But, having lived in the inner city, you know these things happen, Steve, right? You know that there's stupid people out there. But without giving too much away, I'll just do this briefly. But Matthew's his first car was he started off with a Ford car, or KA as he called it. I remember those little Fords. Yep. Then he wanted a Boxster. He couldn't afford a Boxster, Steve, so he got an MGF, which is like mid-engined, convert soft top experience to get the Boxster experience. Obviously, eventually he went into a Boxster. He got a 99 2.5 Boxster, 986.
Yep.
Then he moved into then he moved into his first 911, which was a 996.1 98 model, so first gen 911 3.4. Then he bought a 997.1 Carrera, same as mine, 06, same model year, pretty much the same sort of options as well, I think. Yep. And then he sold that one, which he kind of regrets, he said. He did regret selling it, but I think he thought at the time he was losing his job, so he decided to give it away. And then he got a job straight away, so he didn't really have to sell it. He sent me and Matthew, I know you're listening, so hello. And he sent me a couple of messages earlier in the year, Steve, in January, saying whether he was debating whether to get back into a base or a 4S 997.1 or a turbo. And then in May, he said he put his deposit down on a base 997.1. I think he looked at the turbos and he looked at the 4S, like he said. But I think it's like a lot of us, Steve. It's like you can afford the car. Maybe you can push it and afford the car, but can you afford to upkeep the car? And I guess that's
a 4S and a base. Maintenance would be the same, though, wouldn't it?
You think it would?
Yeah, not a huge difference. I know there's a four-wheel drive transmission, and the cost of brakes because they're bigger would be different, but I don't think overall the maintenance would be hugely kind of.
I thought you told me when you asked Grant about this years ago when we were talking about 4Ss and turbos, you said that he said they're a lot more expensive to maintain.
You're talking between a turbo. Yes, sorry. Yeah, a turbo is obviously a lot more. I thought you meant between a base and a 4S.
But a turbo is, right? Because he really wanted a turbo.
Yeah, a turbo's going to cost more. Yeah,
and also manual turbos are just ridiculous prices now. I think there's one in Sydney for, is it 280,000? I think I saw one. I don't know.
Yeah.
But anyway, Matthew's got a good story, so go and check that out and go over to his Instagram. His Instagram is at midnight.997, at midnight.997, because his 997 is midnight blue. He had the wheels customized. He's got the yellow calipers, which I think look really cool. So go over and check out Matthew's Instagram and say hello and tell him you heard his story on PorscheCooled. And you know what? Matthew's listened to all the episodes. He's listened to every episode of the podcast. And he's also, he came across my YouTube a few years ago, so he's been following for a while. So really good to have that support.
Matthew, at what point have we gone downhill? Is it since I've joined?
We haven't gone downhill. And I just want to do that following the recap of my service, Steve. You asked me about the extra spoiler bit. So everyone will know that I got the extra spoiler bit on the bumper that I've been talking about. PS sourced it. It wasn't that expensive. I think it was $100 odd or something. I can't remember. It is quite low. Yes, you can see it. You can see it.
So when you look at the car from directly standing in front, if you're standing up, not crouching down,
you have to bend your head down.
Okay.
But as PS said, it just clips in. He said, beware, it just clips in. So it could, if you knock it, it might come off. So I'm guessing that's what happens to them. They get knocked off. I guess it's a bit like your front black thing that you have on yours too that gets knocked off if you hit the gutter.
That'd be way worse. But I was just curious whether or not once you kind of, I know the driveway at your place is very scrape-worthy. I used to scrape my car every single time, pretty much. So I wondered whether or not you'd catch it.
Something's catching because I still haven't managed to get out of there without hearing a scrape. I'm thinking it's those two little guards that are just near in front of the front wheel. You know what I mean? Those two little guards on the 997 that come down. I'm thinking that's what the noise is. I'm hoping that's what the noise is. I haven't looked underneath. But anyway, it's done. I mean, it comes standard with it. It wasn't an option. It actually comes standard. It's in the parts diagram. I think it's a standard part. If you don't know what I'm talking about, just have a look at the parts diagram. It's number 17 on that page. I posted it on Instagram yesterday. It's probably still up there. All in all, though, Steve, with Autohaus, as you know, everything was okay, just to give the listeners an update. The only other items that showed up were my front under tray is cracked. I don't know whether I should. Is cracked. Is it? I don't know whether I should replace that. I'm tempted to replace it.
They said the same thing about my car. Admittedly, I know my car had been taken to a track and all of that sort of stuff. I don't know. What difference does it make?
You don't want to do it?
When's the next time you're going to... no, not really. I've left it this long. I sort of thought like you. I was like, when they pointed it out, I was like, probably be nice to kind of tidy it up and stuff like that. I mean, things like the brake cooling ducts and stuff like that, I would go to the trouble of making sure that they're intact and things like that. But if it literally is just like one of the, I know like the design of it is to kind of keep the aerodynamics flat and all of that kind of thing, but I think a crack in it isn't going to mess it up. And like, for the sake of a few $100s, do I really care that much? No, I'm a tight ass.
The front under tray in Australian dollars to be replaced on the 997 is $460 at Autohaus.
Yeah, see, like too expensive for what it is.
I might do it. And then I've got a bit of clutch shutter, which I knew of. But you know what? Yesterday when the car warms up, I didn't get back to drive. The car was fantastic yesterday, by the way. This is not just because I haven't driven it in a long time, Steve. It is so much better. The feel of the front brakes with the new rotors, they must have been worse than what I thought. I mean, I know he said one was bad. The feel of the front brakes, especially when I had to stop suddenly once yesterday, the feel of the front brakes, the feel of the short shifter, right? And I was trying to think about this, whether it's because I haven't driven the car enough, but it's not.
Gearbox mount.
Everything feels tight, mate. It all feels I was saying to Tasha, it feels tight, like the new engine mounts and the new transmission mounts and then the refreshed front suspension with the bump stops and the new rubber. It really does feel so much better. Better. Money well spent.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, I thought that I was pretty like adamant that at least it's one of those, like I said in last week's conversation, that you should be able to feel the difference. Those sorts of things would have tightened the whole thing up. So, like maybe, for example, you're a short shifter, you probably could notice the difference better because if they've changed the transmission or the gearbox mount, then you probably can feel the tightness in it a little bit better.
100% better.
So that's good.
Like it really does. I really can just tell it straight away. As soon as even when I picked it up on Friday, I could feel it. But yesterday I felt it more because I was on a bit of a twisty road and I was, testing it a bit better. So it really does make a big difference. What else, Steve? Do you want to talk about? What do you want to talk about?
I was just going to say when we were talking about coatings before, I'll follow on a little bit on like I sort of spent forever and a day during lockdown working on my car, doing the paint correction, and then I coated it. It's been a couple of months since I've kind of done it. The couple of times that I've gone for a good drive, mainly with Marco, there's been the odd occasion where the roads have been wet or whatever. And I got to say, it's complete bullshit that a ceramic coating, the ceramic coating doesn't really make it that much easier to wash the car, I have to say. And like I've discovered since I've done it, for what it's worth, if anyone's kind of curious.
Yes.
I still think it's psychological. I think it's because I spent so much time doing it. My car's sort of so shiny, just like, you with your fresh bumper. And again, that's why I sort of knew that you might be hesitant about heading out on Sunday morning. But it just takes so much longer to wash the car. Like, how long does it take you to wash your car? Yeah. How long
I've only washed it once since I got back, and it took me 30 minutes.
Yeah, so 30 minutes, right? I used to be able to wash my car, relatively carefully, all that sort of stuff in about 40, 45 minutes, I reckon. It takes me 2.5 hours to do it.
Why so long?
Yeah, literally 2.5 hours. I'm not exaggerating.
Why?
Okay, I'll quickly step you through it.
Yes.
You get the pressure washer, you hose the car down, you try to get all the grit off. Then you get the foam cannon out, you foam it up. Then you get the pressure washer out, you rinse it. Then if it's really dirty, you might spray a little bit of iron, whatever sort of decontamination-y spray thing. Then you hose that off again. Then you get your careful sponge and your bucket and you kind of, do what is the contact wash, so what you would normally do. Then you kind of hose it off. Then you blow dry it with a blow dry type thing, which surprisingly takes forever. And then for me, like I kind of put a topper over the sort of ceramic coating. And just everything takes that much longer because you're so much more conscious of it once you kind of do it.
Right.
And yeah, like I'm really tired and sweaty by the end of it. Whereas before, like, I could kind of probably wash the car in 45. And then if I was going to put a quick coat of wax or something, I could probably do that in about 20 minutes, I reckon. So,
well, I say 30 minutes though, Steve.
Longer.
That's too long. I couldn't do that. It's way too long. I wash that's when I wax my car, it takes about 2 to 3 hours, right? When I wash the car, I say 30 minutes in the wash bay, and then I take it back, and then I, do the other bits.
You tinker.
Yeah, in the car park, and I do the other bits with the, with the tires and the coatings and stuff like that. So I do all that afterwards. That's part of my wash routine. So it's probably like an hour, I'd say. It's probably an hour. But that sort of time is like when I do a full, like, I'm about to go overseas wax, you know what I mean? Where I go crazy and wax the wheels and wax everything. So,
look, I'm sure a big part of it is mindset, because once you've coated your car, like I could wash it the way that I used to wash it. It's just because now I've become so self-conscious about it. That's the actual kind of difference. It's not, like you don't have to kind of necessarily do it that way.
Yeah,
and admittedly, part of it is because, like, for example, on Sunday, we drove on wet roads. So, and, sort of roads that I'm assuming like kind of trucks have kind of gone across. So they're a bit muckier and stuff like that. So your car does get grimy. But it's definitely kind of more tedious, I found. So I don't know, maybe the coaching thing
I think you made a mistake.
May not be for you if you're similar to me, where you kind of go, well, just because the maintenance does feel more difficult. And in that mix too, like, like you kind of do this coating on your car, blah, blah, blah. and you sort of feel like the coating is more resilient and more durable and slicker and everything than, like traditional wax or a sealant. When you drive on a grimy road, you still have to kind of, get your sponge out and rub sort of thing. So it's no more dirt resistant than, like old school wax or anything like that.
Right. Yeah, too much work for me.
It looks bloody good. Don't get me wrong.
I'm sure it looks great. I'm sure I'm going to look at your car and go, you're going to make me do it. But I don't know. Yeah. Maybe I could pay someone to do it. I don't know. I think the problem is that process that you do, I think it's because you shouldn't really be washing a car every week. I think it takes longer, but maybe you don't wash your car every week. You wash it every fortnight. You like to wash your car every week.
Yeah, you don't have to.
Yeah,
it obviously depends on your usage. Like if we were just driving like dry roads in the summertime and all of that sort of stuff, then no. Like it's just that, like once you've kind of gone for that drive and it's gotten really grimy, which has just sort of happened the last couple of drives. It's like every single drive is like, oh, okay, wash it.
Yep.
And it's been painful.
Okay, let me just go into this question because this is something I wanted to ask you last week, and I've already sort of prepped you on it a little bit from the PorscheCooled WhatsApp group. And I think last week I said Ajmal at Flat Cap was the admin. So is Bernard at Abita 911. He's also an admin. If you want to join that group, I'm sure they'd be happy to welcome you in. They're chatting all the time. I'm not there all the time, but I come in every now and again. But I've been a bit busy this week. But Richard Carrera-Licious, Rich asked you a question, Steve.
Okay.
Because I reached out and said, were there any questions? And
Rich said, I was just going to suggest too, given, how like every week we're trying to prep, like what the hell we're going to talk about, is it a good idea to welcome questions from
absolutely
that group?
Because absolutely, but you would have to join. But you would have to join that WhatsApp group.
Me? What?
Yes, you'd have to join it as well if this question's been there because I can't do it all myself, so I need you to join as well. So okay. Ajmal, Bernard, send Steve a WhatsApp response. Actually, you have to send it to me because no one knows his number, so I don't know how he works that out, Steve. How do you work that out?
Okay.
No comment. Steve says no comment, so he's put his foot in it now. Anyway, Richard Carrera-Licious said, ask Steve if he misses his 993. He did have one before. He did have one before the 997, right? Correct. There is such a following and affection for the older air-cooled 911s. Are they worth giving up some of the extra space and conveniences you get in the newer models to get that air-cooled experience? I was actually surprised someone like Nick Murray went from a 991.2 C4S and is raving about it all the time now into a 993 cab and loving it so much that he doesn't even want a newer 911. Can I just say about the Nick Murray thing is, though, I remember when Nick Murray bought that car, he said he paid $20,000 for it, which I think that would be a reason as well for loving that car because you just sold your what is it, $100,000 C4S, and you've got a $20,000 alternative, which is fun as well, but it's also maybe that's part of the reasoning where he doesn't come across as someone that looks after his cars that well. He likes to slide them in the snow and all those sort of things. So maybe that for him makes sense, but I think it is that thing about not worrying about your car so much. Look at Steve. He's ceramic coated, he's paint corrected, and you almost get too scared to drive your car. Look at me with my bumper.
I'm driving
my bumper. But you're driving it, yeah. Steve, what's the answer?
No, I'm driving it. I'm just saying that the maintenance is harder.
Good question from Richard.
Yeah, it is a good question. Maybe though, like with Nick Murray's 993, to be fair, like it's not the best example of it though, isn't like it was pretty ratty in places, and I don't know how like much he's kind of spent to kind of get it up to spec, and everyone's version of spec is kind of different as well, so that's kind of hard.
True.
The answer to that question is ideally you've got both, I think. Having kind of crossed that bridge, like if I could, I would still have something to kind of go with my car because they literally are different. But I definitely miss my 993 because that is and was an amazing kind of car. They are sort of different sort of experiences, and I definitely wish I could still have that car. But I just obviously can't afford to kind of drive both. So I know that's sort of sitting on the fence. Like I guess the question wasn't necessarily choose between the two. I think if I had to choose between the two, actually, I'd still stick with my GT3.
Okay, well, that's a good point.
Sorry. So yeah, the answer to that is they're different enough, and the it's not so much the practicality, I don't think. Oh, no, actually, that's a good point, because I think we sort of talked a little while ago about the fact that a 997 like has better air conditioning. You don't care about things like nav. You probably do care about things like, you know, the how good the headlights and stuff like that are. I feel like the 997 is sort of more reliable as well compared to an old kind of air-cooled, where I think the truth of that is that you do actually have to kind of sink reasonable kind of money into, like, you know, those sorts of cars. Like, again, it depends on how fussy you are, but like I was pouring pretty reasonable sort of money into my 993, and I did into my 964 to kind of keep them to my kind of standards, where I don't know, like now, but I'm assuming that that's still quite an expensive kind of exercise. But sorry, I'm rambling a little bit. The biggest, most defining thing about it, I feel, is that like the 993 at that point in time when I sold it, which was what, almost not 10 years ago, 8 years ago or something, felt slow.
Felt
for
slow.
sure.
So that was the reason.
Yeah, for sure. Like you get like tons of, and I know this is going to segue into something else that we'll kind of talk about, but for sure it sounds awesome. It handles brilliantly. Like, you know, you don't have to kind of be going like 100K down a suburban road to kind of for it to kind of feel something. Like, it's a brilliant car in terms of the actual sort of visceral kind of experience. But there is a point where you start to kind of realize that, you know, like a bog standard Golf GTI or, you know, like some of the other cars around you can literally kind of, you know, I'm not sort of saying that you're racing everybody, so I don't quite know how to articulate it.
But is it, so it's about this thing that we're going to talk about, right? We're going to just touch on briefly because we're getting, you know, we're getting in on time here. But
and I'm waffling.
Fast cars not needed. You know what I mean? You read there was a thread on a couple of sites about fast car not needed or fast Porsche not needed, right? And I think what you just said then, it's like you found the 993 too slow, right? So it's not about top speed either. It's not about doing top speed, is it? It's about that acceleration, right? And also, I just want to make the point, you know, yesterday I said to, you know, we're in the car and I was saying to Natasha, my wife, you know, the fact is with my Carrera, I'm saying it's fast enough. But then, you know, Natasha said that, you know, it's the way that Steve's car feels. You know what I mean? It's the way your car is planted on the road. It's the way it feels in a corner. It's the way the whole feel of the car is different. And I think that's, and it's not, and it's not the reason why you go to a GT3 or a GT3 RS not necessarily for that top speed experience. It's you go to it because of the other side of it, the engineering, not race car feel. I don't want to say it's like that sort of feel, but it's, what is it, Steve? What is that thing? You know, it's
well, if you were chasing that, then obviously these days you'd go to an EV and basically, you know, like you're kind of wasting everybody on the street, and you've got like instant torque and all of that sort of stuff. I've never driven one, but it's very obvious that that's the way that it works. I'm not talking about straight line speed. I'm not necessarily talking, like, you do want some sort of acceleration kind of thing, but it just did kind of feel like the 993 was just lacking in a little bit of kind of pickup and stuff like that, where you could just kind of feel that, you know, you couldn't overtake any kind of car on a whim. I'm talking sort of like in sort of street driving kind of thing. So like, I think if I was sort of chasing you down a road like the old Pacific Highway in your 997 and I was in my 993, I probably would sort of struggle to kind of, you know, kind of keep up. I'd probably feel like I was sort of always lagging behind.
Right.
And not that, again, it doesn't matter that I'm sort of lagging behind, but it got to a point where it didn't necessarily feel that quick, right?
No.
And if I kind of wind back, like, you sort of feel like it's a great car, like you're kind of going at speed, blah, blah, blah. And then you go into something, you jump into something quicker, and it kind of crystallizes that it's actually not that fast.
Okay. But do you miss the smell of the 993? Do you miss those smells? Because the 993 has a very particular smell. I remember your car, I remember getting driven to the station with Autohaus in a 993 tip. It has that smell, that you smell the petrol more in a 993. You smell the leather more. You smell everything more. Do you miss that in the GT3, or the other things make the GT still better? You know what I mean? Like the vibrations, the quick shift, all those sort of things.
As much as I love the sound of my GT3, I do still miss the sound of an air-cooled engine.
Right.
The 964 actually sounded better than the 993.
Okay.
There's definitely smell missing, but it's just that it doesn't matter which way you kind of look at it. Like, to me, the old air-cooled cars are massively fun. They're massively kind of interesting from a oral, audio, whatever point of view, and driving and smells. I definitely do kind of miss the smell of that as well. But compared to, say, like my GT3 now, it does feel slow and it doesn't feel as sharp and all of that sort of stuff. And to me, I know you sort of said this to me once, which was on the podcast where you kind of went, oh, you're more performance-oriented in my taste. And it's like, yeah, for sure I am. But I would have thought that most Porsche drivers would be. Isn't that part of the reason? Like, of its time, a Porsche has always sort of been like a performance-oriented sort of car compared to like every other kind of car. My point.
Go ahead. Sorry.
My point being that I guess it kind of got to a point maybe where it sort of felt like the 993 was a tiny bit lacking, I suppose. And because I kind of I made the mistake of jumping into a GT3 and realizing what it was sort of lacking. Therefore, I wanted to kind of, what I felt like was sort of move up to it.
Yeah.
So I'm not in any way rubbishing a 993 because I'd love to have one. Same with the 964 or anything kind of air-cooled. I'm pretty sure like I would enjoy it to bits.
Yeah.
But I think it's just that when you kind of go for the drive, like the one that Marco and I just did on Sunday or whatever else,
rub it in.
You still aren't quite as, you're not kind of going, maybe it's not, quickly is not the right word, but I suspect that the older air-cooleds compared to my 997 GT3 is still missing that. And that's the bit that now that I've kind of done it, I would feel like if I had to choose one car and if I was in a 993, I would still be kind of going, oh, I wish it was kind of, a little bit more direct. I wish it was a little bit more planted. I feel like I wish it was kind of like a little bit quicker, or it was a bit zingier after 4,500 revs and all of that sort of stuff.
So you come back to that. You come back to that two-car experience thing, don't you? That two-car garage thing again. Sort of keeps coming back around. Like you still like the idea of a 993, but you wouldn't give up a GT3 for it. But if you had a 993 in your garage against the GT3, then it's almost like the perfect combo. You know what I mean? Like
it'd be a different occasion,
different thing. Yeah, but it's interesting, and I'm going to read out what and like I said, Rich's question from Carrera Licious. Rich has been on Owner Stories, was off the PorscheCooled WhatsApp group.
Yep.
And Todd from Stone City Outlaw. I thought what he said, and I read it to you before. I'm just going to read it for the listeners. And Todd, I hope you don't mind me reading this out. He says, Rich just made a good question. It's worth giving up the extra space and conveniences. He says, my answer, hell yes. There's always been the air-cooled versus water-cooled debate, and which is better and why. I can appreciate both, but I prefer the air-cooled. Why? Because it's experience. When driving in an air-cooled, in my opinion, you get more of the driving feel, the roads, the smells, the noises. He says, I feel you lose all that in newer cars. And I think that's pretty spot on, right? That is pretty spot on. But like you said, it's like what are the benefits? There's benefits of a GT3, which I think you just said. The benefits of a GT3 or a GT3 RS or a GT2 or even a Carrera GTS. The benefits of those cars over an air-cooled, everything has its traits. Why we like it. Do you know what I mean, Steve? And they're all Porsches. And I think what the problem is with us Porsche guys, because we talk about this so often, is we really, we drill down right into the nuances of everything that's going on. And I think what you said before is a Porsche is a sports car. Most people think a Porsche is fast. People don't say, oh, that one's slower than that one. People just think Porsches are fast. Correct?
Yep. Yeah. And look, I think that's been reframed by McLarens and EVs and all that sort of stuff. So it's not talking about it in that world. But I think, maybe my perspective and the kind of rambling that I just did is that you have to keep in mind, it's going to sound so wanky, but I'm talking about a GT3 versus a 993, not like I wouldn't have made the leap from my 993 to a 997S. Like I test drove one with a mate and stuff like that, and I didn't think that much of it. Compared to my worked 993, it took for me to kind of go to a GT3 to kind of, in my world, kind of get best of both worlds, which was character plus performance. And even then, like the character of my GT3 is sort of different to the 993 and possibly not as character full, but it still has that. Whereas I think I would find, like a standard, like a GTS or a Carrera S or whatever, it, like, no offense, but I reckon it would bore the hell out of me, sort of thing. So,
well, I know you laughed at me before when I said this, but I did open up the engine bay of my 997 yesterday or the day before and showed Tasha the new shiny engine mounts that you can now see, which are like all shiny still, not sort of tarnished. And I still like, and I know that you don't see a lot of it, but I still like how you can open the 997 and you can see the engine. I do like that. I don't know, little things.
Yep.
And obviously air cools, you see a lot more. I can't even remember what you see in an air cool, but obviously you see a lot more, right?
Well, you don't. The thing about and I'm not a mechanic or I'm not even mechanically minded, but you're not really looking at much of an engine when you open up the lid of a 911. Like you're seeing the intake at the top and that's it.
You see the intake, yeah.
I guess in an air-cooled car, like it's kind of cool looking at the big fan out the back. But, I don't really know how to kind of look at an engine and actually kind of appreciate it unless I'm looking at, what are they called? Like in a Singer, the intakes with the kind of nice little mesh.
Yeah.
That sort of thing looks cool to me. But look, and I'm showing, I feel like a bit of an idiot because I don't actually know how to describe it, sort of thing. But yeah, because I'm not mechanically minded, I don't really have that sort of kind of thing happening.
But you don't always push your GT3 to the limit. You know what I mean? But it's it's all those special characteristics of the GT3 that make the whole experience better than the 993, right? That's what it is. It's all those little things added together. And it's not necessarily because you can do 200 miles an hour or whatever you can do, or the 0 to 60. I guess it is a bit the acceleration. It's nice to have acceleration when you put your foot down. And I noticed that in my car yesterday, only because I've been driving, MG SUVs and Mercs that haven't been serviced in 10 years and, old Audi Q7s. So I noticed the difference. You know what I mean? Big time.
And it feels quick, right?
Feels very quick. Feels very low.
Feels quick.
You still feel like you're sitting on the road, which I'm still not used to. The ride feels a lot harder. Natasha noticed that with the ride, that it wasn't as comfortable, obviously, as than what we've been driving in. But that's the Porsche, and I guess that's the experience, and that's what we like about it.
But see, the thing about it, it feels quick relative because you've been sort of driving like MG SUVs and all that sort of thing. The problem...
Give it a month.
I think the problem... Yeah, and that's the thing. The problem with it is that for all of us, it doesn't matter whether you're in like a 993, a 997 Carrera, a GT3 or a Turbo or whatever. The problem with it is that once it's yours and you drive it, and if you drive it regularly, you become accustomed to the power and the pace of it.
Yeah.
And then when you jump into something quicker, you go, oh, shit. You know, like this thing that I'm driving feels slow now. So, and I think, again, that going back to when I made the switch from 993 to 997, like it did feel like that. I guess maybe because I was driving my mum's C63 at the same time and all of that sort of stuff. And it's like, the 993 does feel, a bit sort of sluggish comparatively. I still enjoyed the hell out of it, and I miss the hell out of it too.
But Steve, let's put it into perspective. Your 993 wasn't a stock standard 993. You'd done a lot of work on it. So you'd actually tweaked it to make it even better and faster and handle better.
And sharper.
You know what I mean? And you pushed it, and I think this is a good point, right? You pushed it almost to the point where you knew that was pretty much it, right? As far as you wanted to go. Sort of as far as you wanted to go. So you'd rather just trade it up and get your GT3, which you planned very well. You sold it, months in advance, did without a Porsche for a while, and then found the right car. So all that side of it, I think you did well, and you haven't looked back. And like you said, if you were looking for a second 911 today, you wouldn't look for a 991 or a 992, would you? You'd look you go to a 993 or a 964, 993 for you, I'd say.
Yeah. I think I'd be sort of choosing between the two. Look, I've never driven. Oh, no, it's not true. I have driven my uncle's, whatever it was, 86, 87 Carrera, but not enough of it to kind of get a real feel. And I think I was too young to sort of really appreciate it. But yeah, if I was adding something, I'm pretty sure I'd be in air-cooled territory, or I would be in spider-ish territory. I'd be in roofless territory, I think.
Yeah. So where are we at? I don't know. Summarize, I don't know. Do you need a fast Porsche? Do you need the fastest Porsche? Well, you don't need it to go super fast, but it's the other things that come along with it, isn't it? It's the other experiences that come along with it, I guess. And like you said, Steve, your point, and we sort of touched on this briefly, this EV thing, this electric car situation, where everyone's got, 0 to 100 or 0 to 60 or whatever it is in a couple of seconds or whatever it is, 3 seconds.
Yep.
It's all getting very crazy. So in perspective, Porsches are not as fast as they used to be. Obviously, the experience of an electric car doesn't even touch a 911 or a Porsche. But our cars are these electric cars. It's just a problem. And that Jeffro Bovington article you sent me from Evo, he's that article about our cars coming too fast for the road. And I know he was talking about McLarens and stuff like that. But then, the scary part, as he said, the scary part with the rapid pace of EV tech and the race to 1,000 horsepower everyday saloons and SUVs, this problem is only going to get bigger, heavier, and ever more out of control. And I think that's a really good point. You're giving supercar power to mums and dads.
Yeah, and I don't know, so definitely the kind of cars sound like they're too powerful for people in terms of just general population reaction times and all of that sort of stuff. Actually, there was somebody posted a video of I think it was an EV driving in one of the Arab countries. Did you see that?
No.
Oh, it was from the point of view, it must have been a Porsche, because I think I got it served up on Instagram. And then an EV goes flying past. It was a Tesla or something like that.
Right.
And then I couldn't even tell. It was like a horse or a camel stepped onto the road into the path of the EV.
Oh, really? Probably a camel.
It was
probably a camel.
Disgusting.
I didn't see that.
Yeah.
I can't recall seeing any. I don't think there's any electric cars in Bahrain. And I guess that's to do with the oil producing. And I guess it's to do with, I always thought it was to do with the heat of the batteries in in the Middle East climate. I did hear the story from my friend in Bahrain, and I think I might misquote this, but there's a person in Bahrain that has a lot of supercars. I know we've mentioned this before. He has the GT1 special edition one as well, and he has Paganis and Bugattis. He has heaps of supercars. And apparently he has issues with a lot of his cars due to the temperature in Bahrain and due to the heat, due to the dust, etc. Where the companies, I think, work with him and try to make sure his cars run okay, because he actually has issues. He has a huge collection. And I think EVs will be an issue in the Middle East. I just don't see how they're working. And I could be wrong, and someone from Bahrain might be able to correct me, or someone else from one of the Gulf states. But I can't recall seeing Teslas or anything in the Middle East as yet.
Okay.
So I think that's a point. I mean, yes, I guess it's inevitable. It's inevitable that electric cars are going to happen. I mean, Spike Hall keeps on harping on about it, that he's into them and whatever. But and they have a purpose, and they have a purpose, I guess, as a family sort of everyday car. I guess if you get into a Porsche when they do a supercar and it's EV, I'm sure it'll be fantastic. I mean, that Mission R, Steve, those images that you sent me, that new link, I mean, the images of it are pretty fantastic. I mean, it looks pretty good inside, the whole styling of it. I actually quite like it.
Look,
but I don't know what's going to happen on the road. Everyone's got this unlimited power. Everyone's got this power and self-driving and, I don't know. I think there's still, Porsches and stuff like that are not going to disappear. There's still going to be fuel, as they say. There's still going to be fuel to use. It's still going to be happening.
They're definitely not going to disappear. It's just that we obviously live in a time where things are literally kind of changing, and whether we like it or not, it's going to happen. Yes. It's just, when is it going to happen for us as kind of older enthusiasts? And we're not even that old, but we are kind of getting along a bit.
Well, electric 911 will be the test, right? When the electric 911 comes out, or the hybrid of 911, I don't think it's going to be hybrid. It's going to be full electric, right? When the electric 911 comes out,
maybe.
When it comes out, though, what are we going to think of it? I'm sure we're all going to hate it at first, and then we're going to love it. Porsche has that way of getting
and I
to
know
us.
you've driven a Tesla. I've not actually driven one. I haven't even been in one.
The acceleration is crazy, though. I find the sound in a Tesla is very weird. That sound that you get, that humming jet engine type. I know people with Teslas will know what I'm talking about, but I find it very weird. I'd rather have the fake sound pumped in, like on the Porsche, where you get the Porsche sound.
On Porsches, yeah.
I told you that in London, right? A car went past me, a Taycan, and I could hear it. I'm thinking, oh, it's a Panamera, and then it was like, oh, it's a Taycan. Oh, it's got sound. Yeah. So the sound, I always thought that sports sound was only inside the car. It's also outside the car.
No, isn't that to sort of help with pedestrians?
Safety and pedestrians, right? Is that a safety thing they have to have on electrics now?
I don't. It's not mandatory, is it? Because like even when I take Walter for a walk in the mornings around where I live, for whatever reason, there's quite a few Teslas around here, kind of going up the main road, and you can actually hear the tire noise, like if you're a pedestrian, like you're walking along the road, because you can't help that, like the bitumen and the tires and everything. So you definitely can still hear it, kind of coming along. But I've got a couple of friends, like because I'm the sort of car enthusiast, like I've got some friends who are expecting a kid, and they were talking about the fact that they might need to kind of, get a new car. They're younger than us. They might need to get a new car, before the kid arrives, because they're kind of just preparing everything. And because I'm making sweeping generalizations, but because they're reasonable about younger, they're probably a little bit more environmentally conscious. So I think they automatically sort of said, oh, yeah, look, they'll look into a Tesla. And it's like,
right.
Yeah, okay. Like I don't know enough about it, particularly in Sydney, but, I knew enough to kind of know that quality control on Teslas isn't that great.
Shocking, yeah.
And me personally, I just kind of go, it's still such early days for that kind of technology. Like if you literally kind of had to go and buy another car right now, my wife and I did it like a couple of years ago. We wound up in a McCann, but I suspect that we're just tipping into that point where if you have to go and buy a new sort of car that's not a sports car for, yourself, like a selfish car, but it needs to hold a more practical kind of purpose, we're just on that cusp where you kind of go, oh shit, like if I go and buy a new petrol car, it's going to be outdated. But if I go and buy a new EV, am I kind of like buying the first generation iPhone where, it's also going to be outdated in 2 years, but I've had to spend, like 150 plus grand on it. So like, is it the wrong time to kind of get into an EV right now, and infrastructure isn't right?
But then Tesla doesn't really update their models that much. Look at the Tesla Model S. They've only just done an update now 10 years later or whatever it is with the Plaid. You know what I mean? They don't really, a little tweak on the light here and there, but compared to other manufacturers, there's no update, Steve. So it almost stays the same. The one thing I have noticed before we go is the amount of Tesla Model 3s in Sydney. I keep seeing them. I haven't been out that much, and I've seen so many. Like I saw them in St. Ives yesterday, obviously, but I've seen so many on the road. And I think, things are changing. And I think, we're talking about EVs here, and it's not about EVs, but I think when that Model Y comes out, the one that's very popular in the US, it's not out in Australia yet. I think when that comes out, and because people say it's great, and I know Spike's got one and whatever, but I think that will take a lot of sales away from Macans and those sort of things. I really do think
there's a lot of,
and I can see why Porsche wants to do an electric Macan, because they have to, because that Model Y is going to eat into their sales.
They have to.
It's going to eat into their sales.
I mean, pretty much all the manufacturers that are getting into EVs are kind of going SUV version first.
Yes, which makes sense. So,
yeah, it does make sense. I think it's just for me, it's like, surely battery technology is the thing that's kind of moving quickest. And like, if I go and spend like 200 grand on whatever it is, a Tesla or a Taycan or whatever it is, surely like in 3 years' time, like what's going to happen to my 200 grand? Because like, if they're like a phone manufacturer where...
Has to be a lease though, mate. Has to be a lease.
Yeah. But when you kind of go like, it's almost designed to be disposable, what's going to happen to your 200 grand that you've launched into like an EV?
You couldn't buy one outright, that's for sure. But I tell you what,
so I don't know.
I know a friend in London is looking at it. I won't mention because this might be a surprise, but the Taikan Gran Turismo, is that what it's called? Taikan.
Cool.
That is so cool. That is so cool. That is the one to get. If I could get one, if I was going to get one, it would be that. But I'd still have to have the 911. Yeah.
Yep.
So I don't know. I mean, let's just finish on that EV thing, right? Because we're not an EV podcast, but let's just, and that article you sent me, Spike keeps banging on about it, Spike off Spike's Car Radio. Will your next car be an EV? You know what I mean? This is the thing. Will your next car be an EV? I think for me, it couldn't be an EV unless I'd still have to have a Porsche or something. I mean,
oh, absolutely.
If I had the money, obviously I would look at, like I said, the Gran Turismo. What about you?
So God's honest truth is that like my next as in family car purchase, like I'll always have the GT3. So if the Macan kind of crapped out any time now, we had to kind of go again. I was actually saying this to my wife the other day. It's like, I think we're just in that sort of funny time where you're right on the cusp of this kind of turnover, and I don't really know what we do. Like I think maybe we might like if we were doing it right now, I think I probably still would kind of go for like an old school internal combustion engine and get like a used M3 or C63 or, like if my wife really wanted an SUV, then you'd be kind of looking at a Macan again or whatever.
But I think you need bigger, mate. I think the Macan is a little bit small. See, I don't know. I mean, I like it, right? But I always remember sitting in the back seat of one, and I can't remember your back seat, but I'm sure it's the same. But I remember sitting them in Bahrain when I went to the Porsche dealer, yeah. And they're small. They're small cars in the back seat. They are okay in the front. They're very comfortable, but the back is small. Wouldn't you want to go up to something bigger like a Cayenne or something?
I hate driving big cars.
Really? But you kind of need more room, don't you? You're saying you're going to go to a sedan, but isn't a sedan, like, you may as well go for a Panamera then, because a Panamera has a lot more room.
Oh, I'd love a Panamera. I'd love a Panamera instead of driving the Macan as a sort of daily.
And they're cheap at the moment, Panameras. You can get a reasonably new one for quite good money.
Yeah, that'd be a great car.
The seats are beautiful too.
Different. Sorry, but it is a sort of different conversation again, sort of thing. So,
but that's a big car as well. So it's not big cars you dislike; it's just big SUVs.
Yeah, look,
because it's a huge car.
I can't move away from the fact that I now have a family sort of thing. So yes, I do need a car that's kind of sizable. Like I've always driven sort of smaller kind of compact cars like hot hatches and stuff like that. I've never driven anything, the Macan's the biggest thing that I've ever owned and driven kind of thing. And yeah, like I get what you're sort of saying, like by rights, the next thing probably kind of should be bigger, but I'm just so shit at parking. I'm going to run into something.
So yesterday, I'm going to change the subject. Yesterday I was driving back. I was just in Willoughby, almost near Porsche in Willoughby, actually in Sydney. People from Sydney will know what we're talking about. And I see in front a silver 997 Carrera. I thought, there it is there. And I'm looking at the back of it going, why does it look so small? You know what I mean? Same model as mine. And it looked tiny. So then I eventually got past him and I'm looking in the revision mirror. And it's weird, like you said, that thing about seeing your car. And I think it's because I haven't seen my car from a distance for a while driving, and I'm looking at it and thinking it really is starting to look a bit classic. Right. It's looking small. It looks it's wide at the back, but then the front looks a bit narrow. It was kind of weird seeing it, at the same level of the 997, right? You're in a 997, you're looking at a 997, so you're at the right angle. It looks tiny now. It looks classic. It's starting to look really classic, that's for sure.
You think so? Yeah.
Yep.
I don't know. Was it like one of the comments that you read out in the WhatsApp group too? Like I don't know if I kind of really do think like a 997 is it as classic as, like a 993 or whatever. I don't think it's kind of hit that point yet. Like, don't you think, to me, it would still be in the camp of it's far, far closer to like a modern day, like a 991-ish or 2-ish than it is like the older ones in my book.
I don't know. I think the 991 is dated quite quickly. I don't know what it is. The rear of the 991 lights, I find that the 991 seems to have dated quite quickly, and I don't know why. I don't think it's held up in the rear as well as in the base Carrera I'm talking about, as well as say the 997 has. And I don't know why. I keep seeing them in London and seeing them here and seeing them in the Middle East all the time. I just feel like it hasn't dated that well. I could be wrong. It could be just that transition stage.
Yeah, I quite like it. I'd sort of still find I still haven't seen that many 992s, but I find the proportions of it like just it's kind of getting a bit kind of cartoonish sort of thing. Like it needs the massive wheels, and I'm still not completely sold on the back end of it. But
I don't mind the back end of the 992 now. At first I didn't, but when you see it in real life properly and you're at the right level, I think it has merit. It does actually have merit. I mean, it's completely different to what we're used to, of course, and like you said, it's a lot bigger. I mean, I do like the 991. I like the interior of the 991, how the console is more higher, and when you sit in the 991, and I've sat in a couple, how it feels like you're more planted down lower. It's just the shape of the console compared to the 997. 997 is still a bit more old school.
Sits up, sits up kind of a bit higher.
But apart from that,
like the difference when you kind of get into 997 versus like a 993 or 964, where the trait for that was really like the dashboard in front of you, like from the steering wheel to the windscreen, was really, really short, and it got longer in a 997, and the windscreen was really kind of upright. That was always like an old school 911 trait. That sort of feels like it's kind of start to fall away as well. Maybe that's because of safety regulations and stuff like that as well. Though.
Probably. All right, mate. Let's call it. I think we've done the time. We've had I'll just tell the listeners. Steve and I have stopped this podcast on and off a few times. Various interruptions. My NBN, my internet connection got installed today, and they told me they didn't need access to my house, my apartment, but they actually did. So we had to break.
Did they sort it out?
Yeah, it's all sorted. It's working. I just did the speed test on it. It's not bad. Not as good as London. London's like London's like over 100 and 140 or something. 100 then 40 upload.
It's not like that here.
This one is half. I just tested it. Then it's 50 and 20 actually, which is about what they said it would be. And during the day, which sounds pretty good. 50 and 20. It's not so bad.
Yep.
So smoother podcast to come. I'm not on 4G anymore. I'm off the 4G, which
the microphone's the right way around.
Give me issue. And my microphone's the right way around because I'm not jet lagged anymore. And I'm not going to damage my car anymore with stupid things that I go and try and fix and can't fix and whatever.
So what's next? What's next for your car?
Replacement front under tray.
I didn't necessarily mean it like that. In the next few days?
The next few days, tomorrow we've got to stay at home.
Are you going to continue to try to fit like the other bits, or have you literally given up? Or?
I'm going to try to do the sunroofs around again because I think it needs it. Right? Yep. And the leather, I forgot when the leather comes from, even from Porsche, like with my console lid, I think on the console lid, they actually said that you should put, nourish the leather when you get it. Like you should put stuff on it straight away. I remember this.
Mm-hmm.
I did the side sills last night. I actually put some of the leather stuff on it, the English brand, whatever that's called that I have. Expensive
Autoglim, yep.
Yeah, Autoglim. And it looks better now. It matches in more. It looks a bit grey for sort of grey-green, or I don't know, it looks a bit weird. But I did notice, the side handles on my 997, the door handles, which are leather, which come leather.
Shiny.
They are so black and shiny, right? And then the other part of the leather, which is the armrest, it's factory leather too. It looks like a completely different color. It looks like I've installed the leather grab handles, but that's how it came with the car, because you're always touching it, the oil on your hands. It just goes really, really dark. And I clean them too, you know what I mean?
My hint for you, because I went through that during lockdown, do the whole sort of follow whoever it is, Larry at Ammo or one of the esoteric guys or whatever, and use the right sort of cleaner with a brush. Like if you take to it with a sort of soft brush and you kind of scrub away it and then you wipe it down, all of that oil shit kind of comes out, and you get. I did the same thing, and I got everything back to sort of like a lot more matte rather than shiny.
Yeah, the grab handles are shiny black. Yeah,
mine was like that on the top of the dash and everything, and I had a kind of little crack at it.
Oh, cool.
I got it to sort of not quite so. Looks like it was at one point smothered in Armor All, which obviously wasn't. But
when people used to use Armor All on the dash, and then all the residue goes onto your windscreen.
Sorry. So if you have a crack at the sunroofs around, have you got any other little bits left over, or was that it?
No, I've only got that key surround, which doesn't fit. I don't know what I'm going to do with that. Oh, the speaker grill, I'm not fitting. I think it looks weird. the one that I got off the records that you sent to me, because it looks different. Because when they put the leather, like I said last week, I think you miss all the holes. I think it stands out too much on mine because my dash isn't leather. So I'm selling that. That's up on Gumtree. I'm selling that. Yeah. Why you want to buy it?
No, where you going?
So I'm selling that. There's no point keeping it. I'll sell it and buy another part. Maybe I'll buy a new. If I sell that one, then I'm going to buy the light surround from Exclusive Option, which will actually fit. Instead of the one from the UK that doesn't fit. And that's it. I've fitted everything then. That's it. I've just got the sunroofs around, yeah.
Are you still going to go outer door sills?
I'm not going to do the stainless steel. I've changed my mind. I think it's too light. And that was decided... I was on the fence a little bit, and I really like it on Nick in the UK's car, Nick from Motor Stories #1, because he's got a black 4S, and it looks fantastic against the black. I had a couple of photos online that I saw for the silver stainless steel seals on Arctic Silver, Steve, and I thought it was okay. Then Autohaus had a car for sale recently, and it had the stainless steel seals on the silver, and it was like more realistic photo. And I looked at it, and I thought it looked a bit wishy-washy. So the only other option is 1, carbon, or 2, just replace it with new stock ones, which are not so faded.
Just try detailing yours then. They'll be kind of...
I have tried detailing them, and they still don't come up that well. They're a bit blotchy.
Right.
The passenger one's a bit blotchy. Mine's a bit, it's got on and off. The problem is, though, and we'll finish on this, but I checked the price of the standard black plastic with silver Carrera insert sills, which are the factory ones that came with my car.
Yep.
They were almost the same price from Design 911 as the stainless steel, which I thought was insane. I don't understand why. They were almost the same price.
Yeah. Not my favorite bit of the car. They've always sort of been a bit that's like one of the cheaper kind of parts of the car.
But the carbon would look the best, right? Sorry. The carbon with the leather looks the best. But if I put carbon, I don't have any other carbon in the car. So then I'm down a slippery slope. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's one big slippery slope.
Yeah, I know. So then that's scary. So I can't do that. So I don't know what to do. I'm just going to leave it for now. I'm just going to sit on it. Steve, let's call it. I was going to say something else and I've forgotten, but let's call it. Thanks, mate. I know you're busy, and I appreciate it today because I know you've got a lot of stuff going on.
We need to actually catch up though. So
yeah, we haven't caught up. I haven't even been to see my brothers yet either, which is really bad. And I've been back for a week and a half. So just to put that into perspective too.
Yeah, no, I know.
But I am going to do that hopefully after this. Something happens in our flat tomorrow. I've got to wait for the tradesman to come. So when that's done, maybe on Thursday I'll drive up to the coast.
Cool.
Yeah, but we should catch up if you're around on the weekend.
Yeah. Or beforehand. All good.
All right, mate.
Go do that drive.
Yep. Thanks, mate.
Cool. Cheers.
All right, everyone. That was Steve coming in from Sydney. My name is Michael Barth. Thanks for listening to the PorscheCooled Podcast, and that's it. Bye for now.